Have you ever felt like your body was fighting against you instead of for you? If you have been dismissed, diagnosed, or just straight up exhausted trying to figure out your own health, this episode is for you. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Gianna Michalak, a board certified clinical nutritionist who received a distressing diagnosis at a young age, and she chose to believe that her body wasn't broken, just asking for help. We are so blessed to hear her story as a woman who fought for remission and won. Not with a miracle product, but with a deep understanding of her body, a fierce hope, and a willingness to change. And she's on a mission to support other autoimmune warriors on their healing journeys to reclaim their identity, their energy, and their confidence. You're going to walk away from this one feeling seen, inspired, and armed with wisdom. So let's get into it. Gianna, thank you so much for coming today.
Oh my goodness, Victoria, what an intro. I'm getting emotional over here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm definitely going to get emotional today because I love everything that you stand for. Um, just for
Thank
the
you.
audience, I work with a lot of weight loss gals, of course, perimenopausal, 35 and beyond. So we can definitely resonate with like what is going on in my body. It's not responding well. But I will tell
Yes.
you, um, 12 years ago, when I got into the online space with nutrition, there were not as many people dealing with autoimmunity. And now I see it left and right. It is an epidemic, like
Definitely.
beyond. So, can you tell our audience, because I'm sure even if they don't struggle with this, they know someone who does, can you kind of give us an understanding of what autoimmunity is?
Yeah, this is such a good question because you're so right. We hear about it all the time, but we don't necessarily understand what it is. And so, a really simple way to understand what an autoimmune disease is without kind of going into the details of specifics when it comes to the diagnosis itself, right? Because lupus and Hashimoto's are both autoimmune diseases, but they're very different and they impact the body very differently. But the one commonality between them is that the damage happening within their body is a result of a hyperactive immune system. And when I say hyperactive, I almost want you to think of it's a firing system. Our immune system is a defense system. We want inflammation in our body, but we want it contained. And a way that I describe this is if we look at inflammation like a fire can have a completely different role depending on its environment. So, in a healthy body, our inflammation is like a fireplace, right? It provides warmth in the winter. It's comforting. It's a good aesthetic if you enjoy a good fireplace, especially again in the winter. But by just changing the role of the fire can have a completely different result. And so, something like a house fire, for example, right? We still have a fire in the home, but it's out of control. And so, when someone has an autoimmune disease, I want you to think of them experiencing a house fire within their body when it comes to their immune system in particular. And their immune system is causing damage in their body. And again, depending on their diagnosis, will determine where that damage is or what organ system they're experiencing damage with.
You have the best analogies. I'm so glad you're here to explain this.
I've learned that analogies are the easiest way to describe this. Otherwise, we're just like going into a textbook, right? And it just gets boring and overwhelming at the same time. So expect a lot more analogies.
I'm excited for that. Okay. So take us back to when you first knew something was off in your body and like what it was like receiving that diagnosis.
Yeah, wow, this is such a good question. And for context, I was very young. I was 12 years old when I got my autoimmune diagnosis. So my process of realization took a little bit longer because there was an innocence there that just was slowly but surely realizing that this wasn't a common cold, right? I wasn't sick to the point that I've yet experienced. It was something more severe. And that process for me took time. And I would say the first layer of that was when I went to the doctor's office. My mom was concerned about this bruise on my leg for what we called it at the time. And the reaction of my doctor's face was the first indication that I'm like, That I've never seen that reaction before from her. And that was the first layer. Then it was my parents' response. So as children, right, we look to our parents to kind of gauge, hey, what's going on here? And I quickly realized that my parents were concerned, panicked, and they were on the phone with doctors way more often, and I was the subject of those conversations. And so the as a child, I think that if depending on when you get diagnosed, you either notice the symptoms first, or as a child, you actually might notice the response of others. And that was my case. Eventually, this process of realizing that I was sick, I started experiencing those symptoms. I became more aware of those symptoms. I became aware of the severity of the symptoms. And that's where I started coming to terms with the fact that I do have an autoimmune disease while in middle school, and it was a severe one. So it's called scleroderma. It's a connective tissue autoimmune disease. And if you are not familiar with this diagnosis, you are not alone. It is quite rare. It is the way that I describe it, it's like the cousin of lupus. So it presents a little bit differently, but it does affect the connective tissue within the body, which connective tissue is within your skin, your organs, your joints, all over. So that's the process that really started this realization of, wait, hold on, this is not a cold. This is something way deeper and way more severe.
What I love, I've heard you tell the story before about a turning point where you basically got on your knees to God and said, "Give me a life worth fighting for." Like, how do you have that moment of like, I'm not going to just be sick for the rest of my life and just let that be. I'm going to fight for this.
Yeah, wow, these questions are so good. I wish I could tell you something inspirational that brought me to my knees, but it was actually quite the opposite. At this point in time, so I got diagnosed at 12. This was just before my 23rd birthday. So I've had and struggled with this condition for 10 years, a decade. And I find that once you're sick for like 5 to 7 years, you start really forgetting what it's like to be healthy. And hopelessness may or may not be infiltrating your identity. And that was the case for me. And so at this point, I'm in college. I'm a full-time student at the University of Florida, and I am doing everything in my knowledge at the time to fight for my health, taking medications, right? I feel like I'm eating healthy, but I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So you're trying your best, you're putting your effort forward, but I was hitting dead end after dead end. And slowly but surely, I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was not recognizing the person that I was seeing in my reflection. And the day that I fell to my knees, I vividly remember just losing myself. I was losing the person that I knew that I was to this condition. It was becoming all consuming. And I came to this point of realization that I don't want to live the rest of my life this way, and I don't have any clear options to move forward. How do I fight for my health? If it's like, I don't want to live like this, but I don't have any options, what the heck do I do? And the only thing that I found myself doing was fully surrendering and dropping to my knees. And I remember at this point in time, I was not a practicing Christian. I didn't really have a personal relationship with Jesus at all. I had an understanding of what faith is, but I still yet found myself in this position of praying and really asking God, God, if you're out there, if you're real, please just give me a life worth fighting for. That was my prayer. It wasn't necessarily healing. It wasn't necessarily like anything specific. I just wanted a life that I felt like I could fight for, really. And this ended up being my first tangible experience with the Holy Spirit. It was quite profound. And the miracle that happened that day is usually not what people expect when it comes to like a miracle, right? When we think of miracles, we think of this like spontaneous healing, and it's like boom, bam, like, you're healed. And it was not the case for me. When um, when I started feeling this beautiful lift of peace, and it was a peace that was not mine. It moments before I was in what I could only describe as despair. It was gut-wrenching, soul ripping despair. And within minutes, I had this peace. And in a way, it was like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. And the miracle of that experience, that prayer was belief that my life was worth fighting for. It was belief that my body could heal. And at that point, I had a decision to run towards that belief with everything that I had, or to sit where I was in that moment. And that was the day that I decided to run with like full faith, full surrender in this process of knowing and believing that healing was on its way, even though it did not necessarily, I didn't experience it in that very moment. So that's a little bit about that experience.
That's so good. And I have so many pieces of that I want to talk about. I have to tell you, it was probably 12 years ago when I was massively yo-yo dieting and screwed myself up to the point that I had this full body rash, basically leaky gut for a
Mm-hmm.
year that doctors couldn't figure out. And I remember coming to the Lord. I went to India on a mission trip. All these things where it's like definitely not the best choice when you're not sure what's going on with your body. But all this searching and this supernatural peace,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't miraculously all of a sudden heal. My body sorted itself out over time. And actually, I remember telling my husband, who was my then coworker and friend, the
Mm-hmm.
Lord's healing me. And he was like, you're crazy. Like
Yeah,
his face was
it
like,
does.
crazy. You're crazy, girl. Obviously things have changed quite a bit. And there is a natural piece of that, right? Like he gives us
Yes.
wisdom in what to do in the natural. But
Yes,
totally
absolutely.
understand your that breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to dive in first is hope deferred makes the heart sick. How you were sick for so long that it becomes a part of your identity,
Yeah.
right? Like the sick girl identity. And there is this neuroplasticity element, right? Anything that we've struggled with for months and years, it's now part of our wiring in our brain. What would you tell someone in unraveling essentially this has become a core part of who they are?
Yeah. Again, these questions, I can't even get over how good they are. These are so thoughtful. And I just know that they're going to be so, so helpful for, gosh, at least one woman, but I know that there's going to be many. So I think that the beginning of this question really starts with the understanding that the autoimmune experience is just as emotional as it is physical. um, Emotionally, when we are experiencing symptoms, when we are coming to the realization that this is not a cold, that this is an illness, and that it's chronic, and it may or may not go away, right? When doctors are like, there's no cure, there is something that happens within your brain when a doctor looks at you straight in the face and says, there's no cure for this, or I don't know what's going on with you, right? And what happens emotionally is that we start feeling betrayed by our body. So if we have like a best friend or someone that we love and we feel betrayed, it's like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? And there's a grieving process when it comes to that. And so, understanding first and foremost that not only is the process of being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease emotional and traumatic, but the actual experience of having a chronic illness is also traumatic. And that's because we what quite literally feel out of control when it comes to our health. Every single day, we feel like we have to have a hyper fixation on what symptoms are happening. Will I flare today? How am I going to feel today? Will I be able to do what I was able to do yesterday? And this perpetuates fear and it makes us small. It makes you small over a period of time. And so, as we start dealing with these chronic symptoms for months and years, they just start hitting our identity little by little. And this is where the sick girl identity really came from, because we start to really walk in our life like we're sick. right? And I think that there's validity to that. And then there is an emotional mindset to that where you start being like a victim of your experience. And when I say victim, I mean that you start to accept that there is no hope. And that what you just said, I'd never heard of that statement before. So deferred hope, what did you say
Oh, it's
before?
actually it's in the Bible. It's in Proverbs. I think it's in Proverbs. Deferred hope makes the heart sick.
I've never heard that before. This is, gosh, I study the Bible. What, like,
It's too rich. There's
that,
too much.
there's
Yeah.
so much. And like, you
Yeah.
just can, what a beautiful example of like, you just continue to learn God's word. Love it. So, deferred hope makes the soul sick. That is ultimately what happens. We start identifying more with hopelessness, and our soul starts becoming more and more depleted, excuse me. And then our dreams start to fade. Our goals start to fade. Who we are starts to fade. And so, one, there's two things that I want you to take from this before we kind of dive into like what you can do about it. One is understanding that having an autoimmune disease or a chronic illness is inherently traumatic, and giving yourself grace when you're feeling fear or uncertainty or overwhelmed. Like, these responses are valid, and there's a way that we can support you in momentum when, despite the fact that you're having this trauma, right? And being really, really vigilant on the fact that all because you're sick does not mean that it has to be a part of your identity. All because you are diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, it does not have to be your life sentence. And there are options that can allow you to move forward with fighting for your health and living a fulfilling life step by step. And we start there. We start with the fact that your capacity is likely limited, you're likely overwhelmed, you're likely afraid. And then we move forward based on that capacity. Does that answer your question? I don't know if I answered it clearly. I want to make sure before I wrap up
Yeah.
this. Yeah?
Um,
Okay.
what I love that you said is experiencing the grief is important.
Yes.
Like, not toxic positivity. We're not saying like Pollyanna yourself, oh, it's gonna be fine. You're just gonna get better. Experience all of the emotions associated with this really life-altering experience because that's how you start the healing process, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And there's two things can be true. We can have faith, right? Which some people might feel like is delusional. That's okay. We can have surrender and faith, and we can also be present and grounded where you are today. And so I actually have, if we have time, I can share with you two mindsets on the difference between this. So, first is going to be a mindset that most of us fall into at some point in our life, especially if you are someone who has been on a healing journey and you don't feel like it's working, or you feel like you end up quitting because of overwhelm. And it's likely that you are falling into the "are we there yet" mentality. So this is actually also really common when it comes to weight loss. So an example when it comes to weight loss is the person who is doing the work, but she's weighing herself every day and she doesn't see the number change, and she's like, it's not working. And so what happens is the "are we there yet" mentality is that we're like, oh, did we heal yet? Did we heal yet? Are we there yet? And every single time that answer is no, we get hit with failure, shame, hopelessness. It is quite literally a response that is happening on a subconscious level, because what we're looking for is evidence. Our brain is looking for evidence. And so what happens, we're not aware of it. We're not consciously choosing this, but when we move in this mindset, we're just collecting more evidence that it's not possible. And then this leads to overwhelm, burnout, and then ultimately quitting, right? I've tried everything, nothing works for me. Now, if we shift this, understanding that we need evidence, right? This is where we're not doing toxic positivity. We're gathering data, and we go into the "graduation day is coming" mentality. So let's say, for example, we're all freshmen students in college, right? We just took our first midterm, and there are two students. One of them got a B plus, right? Is like locked in, ready to learn. The other one got a 100%, got every single question right. But when they were submitting their midterm, they're like, oh, did I graduate yet? Is it over? Right? The student that got a B plus is more likely to graduate and do well than the person that got 100% on that midterm with the mentality of the are we there yet mentality. And so the concept of the graduation day is coming mentality is actually inspired by the way that I approached my healing journey. And so graduation day, when you start college, you don't know what day graduation day is going to be. You don't know the semester. You might not even know the major or the year, but you do know it's coming. And it helps you go through the discussion boards, the work, the homework, the finals week, the cramming, the sleepless nights, all this hard work, because in your head, you know that graduation day is coming. And so if we focus on that, hey, like my body is healing my whatever that looks like for you. For me, it was remission. I was like, remission is coming. It's on its way. Freedom is on its way. It's just not here yet. And in that process, you're gathering data. You're getting the B pluses, the A's, whatever it is, right? The wins, those breakthroughs, and it's evidence supporting your mindset and your brain because we're logical. Hey, you're doing good. Hey, you're breaking through. Hey, this is progress. This is something worth celebrating. And so this is a pretty like black and white example of how we approach healing, and we can do it with faith, right? Is actually not delusional. It's actually sets us up for success. So,
That's awesome.
mhm.
It's like the two, just that shift in mindset, what you're bringing to it is it's teaching your brain which evidence body to build.
Yes, exactly.
I
Exactly.
love that. I
Mhm.
love it so much. I actually, our clients, when they come into our program, watch a couple mindset videos at first, and I tell the
Mhm.
story of the day that I was training for a bikini competition. And
Mhm.
I said out loud to my friend, I'm not a bikini girl. I'm a chubby girl in a bikini girl's body. And it was like this click went off where it was like, I am still gathering evidence that I can't be a fit person. I can't figure this out. It's one of those moments, and everybody has to have that moment where they look at themselves and go, what are you fighting for?
Yeah.
Like, who are you fighting to be here?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where your identity can shift. And from, you know, from this like, oh, health, like, chubby girl versus healthy girl versus sick girl versus healthy girl. We all have this, and a lot of it can stem from our childhood,
Mm-hmm.
or our teenage years. And so getting clear on like, who are you, what identity is living free within your psyche right now? And is that actually helping you on your healing journey? Or is it time to start gathering some evidence towards the person that you know that you can be? There's just seems to be a roadblock there.
Mm. Yeah, and wouldn't you agree that it continues your whole life?
Oh, yeah.
Like, get to
Uh,
another level.
oh my gosh. It changes everything. What I can speak to is like the version of me that really truly believed that she was a sick girl. I can look back on her and be like, wow, she was so strong. The fact that she truly believed that she was a sick girl. And when I say sick girl, like obviously I had an autoimmune disease. Obviously there was illness within my body, but my identity was like, oh, she's the sick girl. And the fact that I chose healing over and over and over and over again is something that I look back on, and I'm just truly in awe. Like that's where it's like, God, like how did I even do that? And on my own, right? And this is really where you don't have to do it on your own. I made mistakes along the way because I was on my own some part of that time. But I did have people in my corner, from herbalist to functional medicine doctor to health coach, to help me figure out more about what I needed to do with this wisdom that I had. And it starts with understanding the identity that is roaming free within your brain. It really, really does. And where you want to end up, right? So if you want to be strong for your kids so that you can play with them this summer, right? What is that identity? Who is that? Right? And it's not necessarily this, and I want to almost distinguish something really quick. It's not you becoming an identity, it's you becoming you. When we're describing the identity, we're not describing something outside of ourselves. We're actually describing something that's within us that we want to grow. I am more me than I was when I started this healing journey. And that's because I really started with an identity that was within myself. I just really felt compelled to distinguish that because if we're not mindful, we can start chasing identities that are put in front of us. And
Mm.
that might not necessarily be the identity that you want for your health. And that's going to allow you freedom and give you life. So I digress. Just felt like I needed to share that.
You do need to be in alignment. Was it the Statue of David that
Mhm.
Michelangelo was working on? And he just said he just kept working on it and releasing the art that was already in there.
Yes. That's
Yeah,
such a good analogy.
I didn't phrase it
Exactly.
right, but it's the same thing with you.
No, it is. Yes.
And I'm so excited for you because it's not obvious on video, but you are very pregnant.
Mhm.
And I have read that your brain rewires the most the year after having a baby. And
Yes.
I would probably agree with that.
Hmm.
And it's funny that you brought this up because one of the standout moments since meeting you was you saying to me, we were at like this function and there's all these amazing businesswomen, and you said to me, you're attracted to this because it's within you.
Hmm.
I'm getting emotional. I was within a postpartum period with my second that felt very off. Like, when you probably have heard this many times when you're a mom, there is this moment of like, oh my gosh, who am I now? I have
Yeah.
to, is this me recreating myself or is there someone in there? There's a lot of discovery going with that. And you just spoke to like, it's already within you. And that's something I totally believe in. The solution isn't outside of you. You don't have to be searching, hyper vigilant, looking everywhere because that's a threat, obviously, to your nervous system. It's just knowing
Yes.
you were built for a life and now you're unearthing this person that, life happens, that things happen that you don't connect with as much anymore and you get to grow her and develop her
Yes.
again.
Absolutely.
So good.
100%. Our conversation is something that I look back on super fondly because in the moment, I didn't think much of it because we were just having a casual conversation, but seeing how much has changed since that moment and seeing you grow and glow up one, like just in business and so many things, it's like God really had a message for you. I think that I was just the vessel. And that's the beauty of this is that
Hmm.
if it is attractive to you, what about it is? And that's what you want to feel and get curious about and pray about and and get support in. And that's how you know that the right people are in your corner because of that intentionality. Even if it's just for a season, it doesn't have to be forever. Sometimes it's just for a season. It plants a seed or it plants a fruit tree that eventually becomes something that provides hope for yourself, provides hope for your family, and sometimes even others.
Hmm. So good. Well, thank you for that
Of
on multiple
course.
levels.
Yeah. It's honestly an honor. And we now we're here, it's
Yep,
so good.
yep.
It's
So good. I have to tell you something I saw on social media. It
Mhm.
was a reel that a girl was like, "Oh, you're here to tell me that you not being a doctor can heal me of my autoimmune disease," like one of those, and it had
Yeah.
so much engagement. It struck me so hard where I was like, I feel for you. I don't understand fully, like as far as I know right now, do not have an autoimmune condition, even though there are things that run in my family.
Mhm.
I feel for that, but I'm like, you're going to fight for that. And people really, really do. What I love so much about you, Gigi, is that you believe in both that functional space, holistic healing, and what your doctor gives you. There's a
Yes.
merging of the two. So, can you speak to that? Because I feel like people think that they need to do one or the other.
Yes, this is, gosh, your questions are so good. I'm just going to say it every time. I literally think I've been taken back by these questions every single time thus far. And this is such a big one because here is the reality. When you have autoimmune disease, it can be dangerous to work with practitioners, nutritionists, providers, right, that say that they can heal you with no medication at all. And I am saying this from someone who has experienced autoimmune disease, and I know how severe flare-ups can be. I have almost a heart for people that are extremely skeptical when it comes to the integrative alternative functional medicine space. And I think that, to be honest, as functional medicine nutritionists, dietitians, practitioners, even doctors, we have to almost take on the infamous reputation of providers that do it wrong. And there are. I was actually having a conversation the other day with a good friend of mine who is definitely working with someone who, I mean, she's paying like $1,000 a week and there are red flags everywhere. Yeah, it's scary. And so this is one of the reasons why I actually, well, one, I'll never be the person or the provider to tell you what to do with your medications. One, because I'm a clinical nutritionist and that is out of my scope of care. And two, is that we can actually do both. It's the safest option for you. And this is actually what I did. So what this can look like is, for example, with scleroderma, it is very, very common to take a really harsh medication called methotrexate. If you don't know what methotrexate is, that is probably a good sign. But if you do know, you know that this is a form of chemotherapy. So you can take it orally, you can apply it through a syringe, you can, I don't want to say shoot up your leg. That sounds so graphic, but that's ultimately what you have to do. I had to do that in college a lot. And the side effects are not fun. However, it could be a really helpful resource when it comes to severe flare-ups, when it comes to connective tissue autoimmune diseases, right? And so I was still actively taking methotrexate chemotherapy while starting my healing journey. And what this does is you actually get the benefit of both. And there's a few different ways of why that is the case, okay? One, medications will manage your condition. Now, when it comes to autoimmune disease, we have to understand what management means. Management means slowing down the progress of, because it's not a cure. There's no cure for autoimmune disease. So the harsh reality is that even though you're taking your medications, you are still getting sicker and sicker month by month, year by year. And this is how having multiple autoimmune diseases is something that's actually common for the autoimmune warrior, right? However, we need to make sure that we have these medications in your corner so that you can function in everyday life, right? And so there's a benefit here, and it's an incomplete resource. And this is where nutrition can come in. And when we're focusing on nutrition, we're focusing on functional nutrition. So this is taking into consideration your digestion, your nervous system regulation, your gut health, your hormones, etc. Really looking at your disease from a whole person approach, okay? So when we are looking and incorporating nutrition into this equation now, two things happen. One, we are quite literally supporting your body from the foundation up. We're giving your body not only the resources it needs, but you're putting your body in an environment where healing is actually possible. This is taking into consideration the fact that it is traumatic to have an autoimmune disease, what you can do on an everyday basis to feel more in control of your health, and things that you can tangibly do to alleviate symptoms while taking medication. This is kind of where we start. Now, one layer deeper, which in my opinion is like so cool and so exciting, is that the way that nutrition really helps conventional medicine is that your gut health processes medication. Okay, medication needs to be broken down, metabolized, and utilized within the body. Okay, this is biochemistry. This is how medications work. So, what can help medications work better? What can help you metabolize medications better? What can decrease your risk of medication-related side effects? Less inflammation, a healthier gut, and stronger digestion. This means that how you fight for your health outside the doctor's office can quite literally allow you, at minimum, to get better results from the medications that you're taking that your doctor is recommending you. And here's the other kind of harsh truth. When we're talking from this realm of autoimmune disease, a lot of these medications are experimental and they only work for a certain period of time. So that's very, very often for a medication to work, and then out of nowhere, it doesn't work anymore. And then we have to find another medication and go through that process again. So if there was a way that you could increase the effectiveness of medications and extend the timeline in which that medication is effective for you, wouldn't that be something that you would want? Of course, right? Yes, I love talking about remission. I love talking about freedom. But if we just snip it into like feeling more in control of your health or having flare-up free days, that is ultimately within reach. And I'm saying within like weeks or months. And so that is the beauty of doing both. Often people do not have the experience of fighting both because they haven't been that sick. And so they decide to go like rogue. This is not a question, but I do feel compelled to talk about this because it was something that I was talking with a client the other day. And it's this element of advocacy. And I feel like now that I'm pregnant, I'm 32 weeks pregnant now. So now this concept of like labor and delivery and advocating for yourself with the OB, right? And like all these decisions. And so it's really been on my heart right now. And when a lot of the times when it comes to these alternative practitioners, they'll be like, you have to advocate for yourself. And I want to just pull a veil of what advocating for yourself actually allows you to do when it's done correctly. Advocating for yourself, the fruit of it leads to partnership, not you being right. I'll share kind of what I did in the beginning with my rheumatologist. I just want to make it abundantly clear that if you are following social media accounts that are talking about advocacy and like there are people angry and pissed in the comments, that is not advocacy, that is arguments. And you will not be supported if you are arguing with your doctor. It is quite literally a waste of your energy, your time, and your resources. Instead, you can learn how to advocate for yourself in a way that results in you getting the strengths and education of your doctor, you feeling supported, and being on the same page as your doctor. And being on the same page as your doctor is invaluable. It allows you to actually feel like you're moving in the right direction and getting what's truly life-changing and life-saving from the conventional system. And so, really briefly, I'll share what I did when I had to have a pretty intense conversation with my doctor, and it was about methotrexate. So I was on a healing journey for 8 months. I was taking my methotrexate. I was doing all of this stuff on the outside of his doctor's appointments, and it was time to give him an update saying, hey, I'm doing this. And my goal is to get off these medications, right? Now, I've been ill for over 10 years. Okay. I've been working with this doctor since I was 12, and he is probably the least alternative, open-minded guy when it comes to, diet. He just very narrow-minded when it comes to that. Great doctor, not an open-minded doctor. And so I asked him countless times over the years, what can I do? Diet? He's like, nothing. You can't do anything, right? So I'm about to have this conversation, and the goal is not arguing with him. The goal is partnership. And so the way that I did this was, hey, I want to give you an update. This is what I'm doing. So I explained to him everything that I was doing outside of the doctor's office. And then I clearly shared the benefits. And I clearly shared the benefits when it comes to the symptoms that he cares about. Okay. So, for example, I did not include energy. I know that energy is so important to us on an everyday life, but my rheumatologist, when he's focused on scleroderma, does not care about my fatigue. I know it's horrible, but it's setting you up for success. Focus on the symptoms that they are looking at. And then after I establish the fact that, hey, there are potential benefits here, my goal is to start weaning off medication. And now I ask, hey, do you see this as a possible option? I'm giving the not authority, but the expertise to back to the doctor. One, for you to heal safely, you need the observation of a doctor in your corner, right? Someone who knows your condition and ideally knows your case. And so at first, he was skeptical. We went back and forth, went back and forth, went back and forth. And again, my goal was partnership. And I said, let's say his name is Dr. G. Dr. G, I want to be so clear with you. I I need you in my corner for this to work. I'm not willing to do this without you. And I have to be clear is that, me weaning off medications is not like I'm not asking for permission, like I'm asking for partnership. I want you to be in my corner so that this is possible for me. And I want to do it safely. It wasn't until I said that he was like, okay. And he gave me an ultimatum, which for some might seem crazy. I was like, green flag, let's go. Right. And he said, I am willing to take you off methotrexate, but if you flare, you will have to go on the highest dose of methotrexate you have ever been on in your life. Now, keep in mind that we're talking about chemo here. So we're talking about side effects, hair loss, consequences to being back on the medication, right? In my heart, this is where faith comes in, maybe a little bit of delusion, some evidence where I was like, bet, let's do it. I have not been on methotrexate ever since. And so that was how partnership was established in the first year of my healing journey. And it allowed a high quality doctor, even though he didn't necessarily agree with what I was doing. I didn't take his expertise from him. I gave him reign. I gave him respect and I gave him authority when it came to him telling me how my disease was progressing or not progressing at all. And so that's a little example about how advocating for yourself can look like, especially if you choose to do both, which I highly recommend. And again, conventional and alternative together.
I feel like I just got a master class in communication in general.
That was like the longest answer ever, but it's such an important thing to mention because really so many people are fighting about choosing a team and it's like
Hmm.
it's not about the team. It's like being a Bills fan versus a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Yes, it matters for the like Super Bowl and all that fun stuff, but when it comes to your everyday life, it actually really doesn't matter that much because we still have to live every single day. And so I hope that that's okay.
I wish I heard that before I had my first baby. Honestly,
Yeah.
seriously, because there's a lot to be learned for anyone in terms of appropriate advocacy and getting that
Yeah.
partnership piece and just being respectful person.
Yeah. It's been so helpful with my OB, honestly.
That's
And
awesome.
it's a skill that is easily utilized in so many elements, but specifically when it comes to doctors, it works wonders and you feel seen and heard. And I feel like that's such an issue when it comes to the conventional system. But we as patients can start taking responsibility for how we advocate for ourselves in these doctors' offices.
So good.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to have you back because I haven't
Hmm.
even scratched the surface of inflammation, which is such a big deal for people who want to lose
Yes.
weight in my
Hmm.
audience. I have one more question for you, but before
Yeah.
that, can you please tell people where to find you
Hmm.
and about your programs, what you do?
Yeah, so we definitely have to do a part two to this. I'm absolutely down to get into the nitty-gritty of inflammation. This is such a beautiful stepping stone so that when we're talking about inflammation, right, you're in the right headspace. So I'm just so grateful for this episode. If you are looking for more information about autoimmune disease, how to start fighting for your health, you can find me on social media at autoimmune.babe. You can check me out at autoimmunebabe.com when it comes to any services. We have workshops, we have a roadmap. There's also a symptom clarity consultation. If you're someone who's like, I don't even know where to start, I just know that I'm experiencing symptoms, this is a really great way to get started. And it's only one session. So it's like everything that you need in one session. And then we'll talk about next steps. Also, I'm going to do a little tease. There is also something coming that allows you to get 24/7 support and have me in your pocket. So if you are someone who is looking for just a good, really good start point, feel free to follow along on autoimmune.babe. There is something coming that is really special and a really great place to start, regardless of where you are on your healing journey.
That's awesome.
Mhm,
So, my final question for today, Gigi,
mhm,
I would love to know if you could gift every woman
mhm.
one new belief about their bodies, what would it be?
I would encourage women to believe that your body is designed to heal and it wants to be on your team. It wants to be on your team. And oftentimes, it's not a matter of if your body loves you or not. It's a matter of speaking your body's language so that a healthy relationship and a healthy partnership can actually occur. And that's, gosh, 7 times out of 10 when it comes to autoimmune disease is understanding the language of your body because your body is quite literally doing its best to fight for you right now. And it can heal. It was designed to heal. God designed it to heal in more ways than one, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Gosh, your body is a masterpiece. And if you can start believing that and starting a healing journey from a rooted belief in this, it will set you up for success in more ways than one.
So good. And I could not agree more, which
Mhm.
is why I'm so glad you were here. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gigi. Thank you for listening or watching. You are an overcomer. So keep believing, keep growing, keep rising above whatever's coming against your richest, most intentional life. And if you loved this episode, please share it. We'll see you on the next one.